I've got 3 guys with me here on stage and 1 guy for real on Zoom. Guy Kawasaki will be introduced in a moment, but I want to take a moment to introduce 3 gentlemen who not only have illustrious day jobs and illustrious past in this industry, but found the time to always give back to students, to education, to SMPTE, and to Silicon Valley Video Summit. And I think that in a minute you'll hear Guy, other Guy, talk about what it means to be a remarkable person. These 3 guys are not only examples of that, but really of giving back. And at this moment in time, when we all sit here wondering what comes next, giving back and being a remarkable person are 2 superpowers, I think. So with that, I want to introduce Pat Griffis, who we've become best buddies over the last few days. And Pat, past president of SMPTE, and will tell you a little bit about his work at SMPTE, and is this a secret, or I can say now at Meta, coming up with standards.
Yes, I never met a paycheck I could refuse. And this panel, I guess it's kind of funny. We have 3 guys and a guy, so it's kind of cute. But yeah, I'm past president of SMPTE, and really excited about having Guy talk about what it means to be a remarkable person. And we'll get to that in a second. My question for him is, what if you're already remarkable? But moving on down, I'd like to introduce John Scheich, who'll talk about his role as SMPTE membership director, and then Shane Ruggieri, who is San Francisco SMPTE section chair. John?
Well, I'm really excited by the participation of SMPTE, Society of Motion Picture Television Engineers, here at the summit, and really appreciate the summit for having hundreds of SMPTE members, professional members, student members here. SMPTE is very, very dedicated to the student population to really help build the next generation. We're delighted to have the SMPTE chapters at De Anza Community College, at City College San Francisco, at San Francisco State University. And today we had, in addition to Pat as past president SMPTE, we had Brennan Jenkins, past president SMPTE, Mark Zorn, who is the Western Region Manager for SMPTE, and of course, Shane Ruggieri, who is our SF section chair. So let me turn back over to Shane and Pat.
Well, Shane, do you want to say a few words before we kick it off?
Sure, a few words, thanks.
He's a man of many words, but today, few.
Just want to thank everybody for coming out. And who's a student here? Raise your hand.
Oh,
thank
right.
you guys. Yes. So my challenge to you is before the end of the day, get 2 or 3 names before in this room of people around you. So please expand your horizons. Thanks everybody for coming out and supporting the students, and thank everybody for just coming out for the. Does everybody have a good time? Good days? Yeah? These guys put on a great show. So if you're not a member of SMPTE, please come out, join our booth, look at it, consider it, and thank you guys.
And little last word for students in particular. The Computer History Museum sits on what, I'm sure it was Indian land at some point, but it's Silicon Graphics was founded here. It was their office space, so keep that in mind as you go ahead into your lives in the digital film industry. We'll start it in this building.
That's ours. Beautiful.
Yep. So now moving on to our keynote speaker, we're really excited to have Guy Kawasaki and the Silicon Valley Video Conference, which we partnered with as SMPTE almost since the beginning here, has always stood for innovation in both technology and storytelling, championing education and new ideas long before they go mainstream. Today's keynote speaker has spent his career doing exactly that, from evangelizing the original Macintosh. Anyone have one of those still? And shaping Apple's marketing to inspiring entrepreneurs around the world. Most recently through his work on how to be a remarkable person, and I see he's on now, so I'm going to ask you, what if you're already a remarkable guy? That'll be my question later. He's been sharing practical wisdom about character, curiosity, and continuous learning in a changing world. And as you may note, Guy is not with us today due to some technical difficulties, but we've been able to work with technology and Zoom. So Guy's going to do his presentation. After he's done, we will take questions from the audience, and so keep them in mind as we go forward. So with that, please join me in welcoming author, evangelist, and legendary Apple alum, Guy Kawasaki.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. So first of all, I want to apologize for not being there in person. I had this completely planned out. I was going to fly back from Hawaii on Sunday night, and then, by Tuesday, I'd be fine. The problem is that 9 days ago, I pulled my sciatica, and I have seldom been in so much pain in my life. And I've been to the doctor twice, I've had shots, I've had every kind of pill. There is no way that I could have sat on a flight. So I am in Honolulu, Hawaii. I know, if you're going to get sciatica, you should get it in Honolulu because that is a nice place to be stuck. So I am sitting on a chair in my apartment in Honolulu, and I hope I can make it 1 hour because I am in pain right now. This is the most painful keynote I've ever given. So forgive me for not being there. I know it's kind of a letdown. You sign up for a conference and you hear who's going to be there in person, and the guy doesn't show up. So I am very sorry that I pulled my sciatica. I pulled it surfing. The waves were 10 to 12 inches. And I am just embarrassed to even have pulled my sciatica. So anyway, that's it. I am here to explain how to be remarkable. I listened to the previous panel. I cannot talk about aspect ratios. I cannot talk about all those video terms and all that. But I can give you advice about how to be remarkable in whatever sphere you are in this video world. So let me begin with my presentation. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully you now see PowerPoint. So I am going to tell you how to be remarkable, a little bit about my background. So first of all, I worked with this motley group of people. This is the Macintosh division circa 1984. I am in the upper left-hand corner of this picture. If I thought for a second that Apple would be as successful as it has been, I would have stood in the front of this picture, but no, I was a dumbass and I just went in the back. And I want you to know this is a historical photo because this is the only time Steve Jobs ever got down on his knees for anything. So this is the one and only moment he ever did that. He's sitting in the front and or kneeling in the front. It was truly an honor and privilege for working for him. So I was an evangelist there. I am currently chief evangelist of Canva. You probably all use Canva. This is the moment that Cliff and Melanie first showed me Canva. This is like 11 and a half years ago. So I'm chief evangelist of Canva, and I'm also host of the Remarkable People podcast, which is the bulk of the material for this speech. I have had people on my podcast, starting on the left side, like Jane Goodall, who I consider the most remarkable person that I've ever met. Next to her is Steve Wozniak. He's on Segway playing polo, which is what rich white men in Silicon Valley do if they're not turned into a billionaire and sold out their souls. We won't go any deeper than what I just told you. Next to him is Melanie Perkins, the founder of Canva. Next to her is Tony Fauci. Underneath there, the people, the three women in red clothes, that is Margaret Atwood. So we all thought she was a dystopian novelist. Come to find out, maybe she's a historian. Next to her is Sal Khan from Khan Academy. Underneath there is Neil deGrasse Tyson. And finally, that is Brandy Chastain, right after she whipped off her jersey in the World Cup. So these are the kinds of people that I interview on my podcast, and they form the basis for what I'm going to tell you about how to be remarkable. So this speech reflects about 300 interviews with remarkable people and my career in Silicon Valley, where I had the privilege of working with many remarkable people. And I always use the top 10 format for my speeches. So here we go. So I want to first give you a, big picture metaphorical way to approach being remarkable. And I think basically everything in life can be explained in a 2 by 2 matrix. So the vertical axis, we measure whether what you are, what your product is, what your service is it valuable or not valuable? On the horizontal axis, we measure whether it is a common thing, lots of people can do it, or it's unique. So in the upper left-hand corner, you have something that's useful, but it's very common. There, you will always have to compete on price. Like if you made the upteenth number of Windows clone machines, you always have to compete on price. Underneath that, where you do something, it's not valuable, but a lot of people do it. That's that's the corner where you're just stupid. In the bottom right corner, you do something that nobody else can do, but is not of any use. That's kind of a bummer. I feel sad for you. So the corner you want to aspire to be remarkable is where you do something that nobody else is doing, and it is very valuable what you're doing. And to use an example, I would say iPod represented that because at the time that the iPod was introduced, and I wasn't at Apple, so I'm not taking any credit. The iPod, it was the only mechanism that had a user interface that a mere mortal could use. It had a wide selection of music. It was easy to install the music. It was inexpensive, 99 cents a song. It was truly unique and valuable. So if you want a metaphor, you want to be the person or the product or the service that is the iPod of your market. Now, let me go into the 10 recommendations. So, the first recommendation, and man, I can relate to this right now because of my pulled sciatica, that the great, great, remarkable people, they look for pain. What kind of pain can I solve? And this is, whether it's Jane Goodall or Margaret Atwood or Melanie Perkins or Steve Wozniak, what's the pain? And this is an example of pain. This is a screenshot from Adobe Photoshop. This is the pain that Canva addressed. That when you look at Adobe Photoshop and there's like 20 tools on the left toolbar. There's open windows on the right side. There's a menu structure across. And then there's all the icons in a menu structure underneath the menu structure. This is the kind of pain that, Canva seeks to solve. So my first recommendation is if you want to be remarkable, you solve pain. Now, in Silicon Valley, there's a dichotomy. And the dichotomy is, well, we can either be a painkiller or a vitamin. And I highly recommend that you be a painkiller because, when you have a migraine headache, you will pay anything to get rid of that pain. That's very different from, oh, let me give you a new democratized injection for Botox in your lips because you want fuller lips. That is not pain. That is some artificial marketing driven need. So look for pain. That's number one. Number two, Number two is, and I think this ties into what you just heard in the panel, which is to say that, you know, if you want to be remarkable, you have to, at the very least, go and see how your customer might be working or might be using your product. But even better, it is to go and be the customer. So this started with Toyota, and Toyota said, if you want to see what's happening in a factory, you don't just look at the reports, you don't look at the executive briefings, you don't look at the benchmarks. You go and watch the factory on the factory floor. But even better than going and seeing is going and being, which means you are acting as an employee on the floor making cars, and you will truly appreciate what they're going through. I have another example for you. I have a friend named Martin Lindstrom, and he was returned by an Italian pharmaceutical company. And the company said, we wanted to get closer to our customer. And closer to your customer means that you want to hire McKinsey for $5 million to conduct focus groups. So what he did instead is he took the executives of the company, he put them in a room, and he made them breathe through straws. And at the end of the exercise, he said, you wanted to be closer to the customer. I made you into the customer. You are a pharmaceutical company. part of your portfolio is for people with asthma. Now you have a sense of what it's like to have asthma. It's like breathing through a straw 24 by 7 by 365. So go and be your customer, which in video means, as you heard in the panel, get your butt in the seat and, watch what these video is. Watch it on your little, your little iPhone 17, watch it on your Android, watch it on your pads, on your pods, on your computers, and the big screen. I also want to point out something, this funny picture. I didn't have a picture when Martin Lindstrom actually did this exercise. And so I went to ChatGPT and I said, give me a picture with people breathing through straws. And this is what it gave me. So I guess you could look at this picture one of two ways, which is, yeah, Guy, that was, it was much easier than taking a picture of four people breathing through straws. Or you could say, man, Guy, that is disgusting artificially generated AI. That doesn't look real at all. But I put it up there just so you can see the plus and minus of artificial intelligence creating pictures for you. Number three is, if you're going and being, then I want you to get into your head that you work backwards, which is what the panel was talking about. Like, how do you make a great video? You work from the butt in the seat backwards. And it is not what you have been doing, what you like to do, what you're good at doing. It's what the customer wants. And then you have to make what you can do match what they want, not make what they want match what you do. So here's a very good negative example. So this is a picture of a guy named Steve Sasson. And in 1975, poor old Steve, he worked for Kodak and he invented that thing on the table. That is the first digital camera ever invented. So wrap your brain around that. Like Kodak invented digital photography. Like how many of us use a Kodak camera today? I mean, who even owns Kodak today? So my take on this is that what happened is that Kodak was working forward. They were saying, we're a chemical company. We've been doing that for years. We're so successful at it. We made billions of dollars at it. So what we have to do is make a way for people to want to buy more chemicals on film and more chemicals on paper. They were working forward. We're Kodak. We're a chemical company. What they should have done is they should have worked backwards from the butt in the seat, which is to say, why do people buy chemicals on film and chemicals on paper? Well, they buy them because they want to preserve memories. So we're not a chemical company. We're a preservation of memories company. And, if you think about it for more than 10 seconds, it's a lot better to preserve memories digitally than chemically. Because if you do it digitally, you can instantly know and instantly share your memory. Whereas if you stick to chemicals, you have to fly back from San Francisco, you have to land, you have to go to the drugstore, you have to give them a roll of film, you have to wait 5 days, you get it back. And at the end of 5 days, you're expecting to look at slides or prints or at least negatives. And oh, shit, I had the lens cover on the camera that day. I don't have any of my memories preserved. So this is a very important lesson. You want to stay relevant. You work backwards from the customer, not forward from what you like to do. Number four is many people think that, when you create this tremendous trillion-dollar company, you had a really sophisticated vision. You had a really sophisticated plan for how you're going to dominate the world. And I would debate that. I think you ask very simple questions. And the questions are like these. Is there a better way? Wozniak asking, is there a better way? Can people use a computer that isn't so big, so expensive, and it's only located at Stanford and Bank of America and NASA? Isn't there a better way to have computers? Or you ask, isn't this strange? Like we've been working on this thing in the lab and we tried to make it do one thing and it had this very strange outcome instead. The greatest example of this is Viagra. We're trying to create a heart medication and come to find out everybody who used it, or at least the men, had massive erections. Isn't that strange? Maybe there's a market to fix erectile dysfunction. If you only get 1% of the men with erectile dysfunction, imagine how big your market will be. And number three is, why has no one done this before? This is like you're working in a company, you're saying, why has no one done this before? I mean, I'm fantasizing here, but I hope that Mark Benioff, when he was working for Oracle and he saw what it took to update Oracle mainframe software, he said, well, why has no one done updates of enterprise software via the cloud instead of, bringing in DVDs and tapes and being on site to change software? Why has no one done this online? And the genesis of Salesforce is there. So I'm telling you, ask very simple questions if you want to be remarkable. Number five is, you have to get it in your brain. If you want to be remarkable, it's not because you did something 10% better or 20% better. It's because you got to the next curve, not the curve you're on. So let's look at ice, the history of ice. In the late 1800s and 1900s, there was an ice harvesting business. So you got your horsey, you got your sleigh, you got your saw. In the winter, you went to a frozen lake or pond and you harvested ice, ice 1.0. Ice 2.0 is now 30 years later. You freeze water in a factory. You could be in Honolulu, Hawaii, like I am, and you could have an ice factory. You're not dependent on the weather. You're not dependent on a frozen lake or a frozen pond. You can freeze water anytime, any city in the world. And then Ice 3.0 is finally a personal ice factory, a PC, a personal chiller. So this is so much better than the ice factory where you had to depend on the ice person or ice man or ice woman to bring the ice to your house. Now you had the ice factory inside your house called a refrigerator. So as you look at the market that you're in, figure out, are you ICE 1.0, ICE 2.0, ICE 3.0, or God help you, ICE 4.0? What is the next curve? You don't just make a slightly better sleigh, you make a slightly better saw, you make a slightly better factory, you make a slightly better refrigerator. What's the next curve in your business? Number six is, the enemy of most people being remarkable is they're trying to ship something that's perfect. And I guarantee you that it is better to ship too early than it is too late. When you ship too early, at least you get the benefit of real world feedback. Whereas if you ship too late, the world is going to pass you by. This is a picture of Steve Jobs with the Macintosh 128K. It was a revolutionary computer. I say that quite subjectively because I was part of that deal. But if you look at that computer, it had a little 9-inch screen, which is smaller than most MacBooks today. It was monochrome. It had a 250, excuse me, not even that. It had 128K of RAM, 128K of RAM, 512K of floppy storage. We were working on a secret project to have a massive hard disk of 5 megabytes. We used to sit around thinking, what are people going to do with 5 megabytes? My God. And this whole thing was $2,500. This is a piece of crap, but it was a revolutionary piece of crap. And if we had waited for color and slots and RAM and processors and software and everything, we would have never shipped and the world would have passed us by. So this is a lesson. It is not so much what you ship in version 1. It is how fast you can revise version 1. That's the key. Number seven is, if you want to be remarkable, you better eat what you bake, which means that, if Steve Jobs is shipping a Macintosh and you go in his office and he's using a Windows machine, something is wrong with that. If you ship an iPhone and you're using an Android, something is wrong with that. You have to eat what you bake. And, like, I'm a podcaster. I use a lot of podcasting software. And every day when I use podcasting software, I ask myself, could the company that is shipping this product possibly actually use the product? There's such flaws. It's so obvious, so easy to fix. Why is it so crappy? And don't get me started, but if you look at Macintosh itself, you look at that and you say, what the hell? I mean, how does anybody who uses a Macintosh really find a system setting to find the system setting that actually controls what you want to do? It's not even presented alphabetically. You have no idea. They had to put a search bar in system settings. That should tell you something that something is wrong. I mean, as a podcaster, I can tell you that many times I have been interrupted by a call in a podcast. So I really, really would like to put my phone in a state where it's not off, but I cannot be disturbed. And I I'm telling you, I mean, you say, all right, so I'm going to put it in airplane mode. I'm going to turn down the ringer. I'm going to do this and do that. And then I do all of that. And still, my wife calls and it rings because she's on the emergency contact list or something. I don't know what the hell's going on. And God forbid, if I ever figure out how to truly silence my phone, then I take another 5 days trying to figure out. So, what do I have to reverse? Do I have to turn the ringer back on? Do I have to turn off airplane mode? Do I have to turn off do not disturb? What the hell did I do to get it to this point where I cannot be disturbed? Because now it's after the podcast and I want to be disturbed by the right people calling. So, this is a picture of the inside of an IKEA office. So imagine if you went to the IKEA headquarters and everything there was made by Herman Miller. I mean, your head would explode, right? I mean, you got to figure that, oh my God, the people at IKEA, they better go to their own factories and their own department stores and put together their shelves and their desk and their lamps, because if they want us to buy that and us to assemble it, they sure as hell better be able to put it together themselves. So think of IKEA. If you went to IKEA and you saw all the furniture was made by Herman Miller, I hope you would throw up. Number eight. Number eight is being remarkable means you have to plant a lot of seeds. It's not going to be obvious right now. There's this whole line of theory that, oh, you should pursue your passion, which I think is total bullshit, because it sounds like your passion should be so obvious. You should discover it very young. You should be immediately good at it because, you're 17 years old. You haven't found your passion yet. What's wrong with you? How are you ever going to get into an Ivy League school? And so, I think that the way it works is through life, you see a lot of interesting things. And when something interests you, you scratch that itch and you scratch enough itches. And one of these days, you might find a passion or two. But to think that you're immediately going to be overwhelmed and knocked out, drop dead, fall in love immediately with your passion, you're setting a bar too high for yourself. This is a picture of acorns. And I'll tell you an experience. I have a backyard that had about 300 eucalyptus trees. So I cut them down because I didn't cut them down myself, but I had them cut down because eucalyptus trees present a tremendous fire hazard. So now I was looking at this bare, hill, and I said, that looks like we just had a war here. So we got to replace, native plants, and the native plant to put back is oaks. I did all this research on how you plant oaks, and they said the best way to do it is to start with the acorn, not a sapling. So I got into this whole process. All right, so now you got to go find those acorns. And if you ever want to replicate what I did, I have found that the best acorns are right out the Warby Parker store in downtown Los Gatos. I have looked at acorns and oak trees all over the Bay Area. Warby Parker, Los Gatos, California. So you take all the acorns you find. I got about 400. You take them home, you put them in a tub of water. The ones that float are dead. You throw them away. You put the rest in the ice box refrigerator for about 3 months. And you want to fake them out so they think it's winter. And then after a while, they start sprouting. You can see the little sprouts there. You take all those sprouts, you put them in the ground. And I don't know, about 200 in the ground. And now 2 years later, of the 200 I put in the ground, there are 4 saplings. Now, if I knew which of the 400 were going to be the sapling, I would only plant those 4. But there is no way I could have known that. It is the law of big numbers. And I think this is a very good metaphor for how you be remarkable. It is the law of big numbers. You got to plant a lot of acorns to get a few oaks. Number nine is you have got to use all your weapons. I was really pleasantly surprised that at the end of the last panel, and the panelists were asked about AI, and more or less they were all positive that it's going to create all these opportunities, some challenges, but it's going to create all these opportunities. So I think that we have labored too long under this concept that the way you be remarkable is you be absolutely brilliant in one thing, and it's all up to you, your intelligence and grit. I think AI changes all that. And now, instead of trying to be the individual brilliant musician, you need to be the conductor. And the remarkable person is a conductor. And the conductor knows, okay, for programming, I'm going to use Claude, or for writing, I'm going to use ChatGPT. For grammar, I'm going to use Grammarly. For this, I'm going to use my own, grit and intelligence. And for this, I'm going to use these people who are better than me. So you need to be able to call in people and technologies across very many things. You might shoot video with a Sony FX30, but you shoot stills with a Nikon, or, whoever, like, or you lost your mind and you're going to buy a $10,000 Leica. I mean, I don't know, but you need to act like a symphony conductor, not an individual brilliant soloist. And number 10 is that I think that, and this was told to me by a psychology professor from Harvard, that we spend so much time trying to make the right decision with big data and AI and all that. And come to find out, it's not so easy to make the right decision because so many things change and so many variables are unknown. So the skill that is really necessary is, yes, you take your best shot at making the right decision, but then you focus the rest of the time on making your decision right. Because if you make your decision right, it doesn't matter if you pick the absolutely right decision, because nobody knows what the absolute right decision would have been. And I like to use a surfing metaphor for this. So when you're surfing, if you're a surfer, you know that most of the time is spent waiting and watching and making a decision. What's the right wave? What direction should I pop up? When should I pop up? What should I do after I pop up? Where should I sit? Is the wind right? Is the wave right? Is the tide right? Is the other surfers right? There's so many variables in surfing. But this is a video of a woman in a competition. And of course, she's trying to make the right decision, picking the right way, sitting in the right place. But yeah, things don't exactly go as she planned. And I'll show you what she does. So here she is sitting, and she's looking for the right wave, making the right decision. She makes a suboptimal decision. The wave is crushing her, but rather than just giving up and falling off, she stands up and gets a ride out of a mediocre at best decision. And I think that is a very valuable lesson for all of us, that, yeah, she's a good surfer. I know, she's my daughter. She didn't get it from me. She's a very good surfer. She's trying to make the right decision, but push comes to shove. At some point, you make a decision, and then you just have to make the decision right. And I got two more slides for you. So this first slide, today, very big day in my life. I released, I think it's the 18th book of my life. It is called Everybody Has Something to Hide. Why and how do you signal to preserve your privacy, security, and well-being? And I just wanted to tell you that it came out today. If any of you are concerned about Signal and secure and private messaging, I spent 9 months studying Signal to write this book, because I think Signal is an essential tool for this day and age. And this is a QR code that will take you right to the Amazon page for Signal. Today, this book is 99 cents. But beginning at midnight tonight, it's going to be free for 5 days, because quite frankly, Canva has been very good to me. I don't care about royalties anymore. I just want everybody to optimize their privacy. So, wait till midnight and get it for free, or get it now for 99 cents. I don't care. Just get it and use Signal. All right. So that is my presentation. Hopefully all of you have opened up your camera, scanned this QR code, and now you're at Amazon. buying, go ahead, blow your wad, 99 cents, go for it. All right, now I am going to stop sharing and then we're going to go to a panel.
Anyone have a question? Please raise your hand.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Shane over here.
Hopefully it's succinct.
Oh, yes. I'm not talking to Guy. So first, wishing Guy a speedy recovery. My question is, the 10 tips are about how to be a better person, a more remarkable person. I'm wondering if he has tips about how to contribute more to the world itself, not just to become a better performer, but also to contribute more to the society overall.
First of all, I would debate that those two things are a dichotomy, that you either are making the world a better place or you're becoming a better person. I think the two can go working hand in hand. And I would say that this is going to really date me, but when I was growing up in Silicon Valley and working in Silicon Valley, we definitely believe we were making the world a better place, that by bringing a Macintosh to market, we would improve people's creativity and productivity. With Canva, we're democratizing design, so we make people more creative and productive. And so, yes, we're working on products and services, we're working on ourselves, but we also have this higher road goal of making the world a better place. Now, having said that, I will tell you, in the last year or two, I am very disappointed in much of what at least the highest levels of Silicon Valley are trying to say they do, because it seems to me that all they care about is making crypto successful and making long-term capital gains as low as possible. And I don't know about you, but if that's what billionaires, if that's all they care about, that is kind of pathetic. And I don't want people to say, yeah, Guy, when he died, he made crypto successful and he got long-term capital gains low. That's his claim to what he did for the world. That's not exactly the high road, in my high opinion.
Okay.
So bottom line is, make the tools and services that help people have better lives. It's kind of simple like that.
Okay, I'm hoping that we have some students that might have a question. Or okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick one. Speedy recovery, Guy. I've been a victim of the same ailment, and it is a lot. It's a lot of pain. So, wishing you that. My question has to do with specialization. It seems like we are facing the dichotomy where we are doing more orchestration with AI, but also the market demands of us extreme specialization in order to sell our skills. It seems like we need to very narrowly care about one single thing and focus on that. I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Thank you.
I guess I kind of believe that every generation says that about the challenges they face. And, back in the mid-'80s, people were saying, oh, you got to be an assembly language programmer, or you got to have a Harvard MBA to be in finance, or, whatever. And then, every generation believes that we no longer need generalists. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that has ever proven true. It may be that every generation believes that is true, especially when they cannot find a job. But I think there is a world, and there's a lot of open opportunities, some for generalists and some for specialists. But I would make the case that nobody goes around looking for a generalist. I mean, you find me a listing at any company that says, we just need a generalist who can kind of do everything. Everybody is looking for a specific programmer, a specific prompt engineer, a specific video engineer, a specific sound engineer. And the thing you do is, that's how you get your entry level, because you're solving, speaking of working backwards, you look at it not from what you like to do, but what the company wants. And if the company wants a sound design engineer or video engineer or an AI prompt engineer, you make yourself into that. You get a job, you go into that company, and then you start taking ground and you expand from just one piece of expertise. And then 20 years later, you're a generalist, but you didn't start as a generalist. Nobody starts as a generalist. You think Steve Wozniak or Steve Jobs started as generalists? Not at all. You start as a specialist and then you grow. So the key is that you have a growth mindset. This is the work of Carol Dweck. And read her book called Mindset. So, you can either have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And the growth mindset means that you believe that you are not the only thing you can be at any given point, that you can learn new things, learn new skills. It also means the fixed mindset means that you think you cannot do that. And even worse, there's a kind of fixed mindset that believes that I am so freaking good at one thing that I don't want to risk my reputation and my self-image by trying things that I'm not good at. So, for example, if you're a really good engineer, you say, I'm not going to try surfing because I'm going to make an ass of myself surfing. And that is true. You will, when you take up something like surfing or hockey or something new or marketing, God forbid, you are going to make an ass of yourself, but that means that you have the growth mindset. So the flip side of the growth mindset is you also have the grit mindset. So this is the work of Angela Duckworth. And the Angela Duckworth theory is, if you have a growth mindset, you're going to have failure, you're going to have setbacks. It's not going to be easy, but you have to persevere. So you start as a specialist, you have a growth mindset, you want to learn other skills, you get set back, but you have a grit mindset. And then one day, 20 years later, holy shit, you're a generalist. And then you can run Apple and you can go to the preview of Melania at the White House and life is good.
All right. We have time for one last question. I think we have one from Deanza. And Guy, just so you know, type this in. You're standing between us and happy hour, so it's a very important last question for you. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, Guy. I really loved your example in step 10, making decisions right, with your daughter riding the wave out all the way through, though it wasn't an ideal situation until you were able to look back at it. And great, I caught a wave. That's actually pretty cool. How you coming about to believing in this step, how do you not let doubt get in the way? Doubt that this is the right decision, or doubt that you can get something out of this?
So let's talk about, what you're saying about doubt and, how to not let doubt get in the way. First of all, let us burst a little bubble. I think that everybody, but maybe especially remarkable people, have doubts. And I bet you Jane Goodall doubted that she could be a primatologist. I bet you Margaret Atwood doubted that she could sell her first novel. I bet you Neil deGrasse Tyson doubted that he would become an astrophysicist. I would even make the case that if you literally have no self-doubt, you are freaking delusional, and you are probably the worst case. And now, don't get me wrong, I have been filled with doubts. Like I told you, I shipped the book today, right? I am doubtful that it will sell more than 5 copies of the members of my family. I doubt. I have shipped 18 books. I am doubtful every time. When I started Canva, I was doubtful what it could see. I left Apple in 1987 and then 1995 because I was doubting that Apple had a future. Everybody has doubts. So don't be like thinking, oh my God, I have doubts. Something's wrong with me psychologically. If you're freaking alive, you have doubts. If you don't have doubts, you're an idiot. So you got to pass that test. So you want to have doubts. Now, the question is, what do you do when you have doubts? And the people who become remarkable, they keep pushing despite the doubts, not because they don't have the doubts. And if we could reassemble that panel back up there, if you could ask them, have any of you ever doubted your ability to be what you are now? And if they're honest and if they're self-aware, I predict that everybody would say that they had doubts. So I caution you that, a little doubt is a good thing. It means you're freaking alive and you're relating to the environment and you are cogent and you have a healthy self-image. So you should embrace doubt and then push through it. That's the key.
And on that happy note, we will call it a day and go to happy hour. Let's give Guy a round of applause. Yeah, put that in your closed captioning, Guy.
I'm so sorry that we had not only a mechanical difficulty here, which I'm sure I'm going to figure out in the next 60 seconds as soon as this ends. I'm sorry I couldn't be there because of my pain.
Well, there's always next year, Guy, and thank you again very much. And by the way, we had Woz here we had Steve Wozniak here.
I had doubts about myself today too, so just so you know. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. You want to say?
All right, we got about another 25 minutes of the bar, so I don't want to get in the way. I just want to thank SMPTE, thank Guy, thank all of you to stick into the bitter end. We hit over 1,000 people today, so that was a big mark for us. You're one of 1,000, each of you, and we're growing this thing, and I thank you all for being part of it. We'll be here next year, same place, maybe a week later, but we'll get you the date later. But again, grab a drink, schmooze a little bit, and go home safely. And we thank you guys. Thank you. Thanks, SMPTE, a great partnership.
Yes.